My name is Bastian, and I am Vice President for Industry Relations at Dairy West. But today, we're standing in front of the C. Anthony Ernstrom Nutrition and Food Science building. And it was in this building that I first got my taste of what dairy foods was like, because I took a class from Dr. Ernstrom, who this building is named after. And it was Tony Ernstrom who changed my whole perspective on what I should do with my life and my career. I sat in the class in this building, and Tony Ernstrom got up and he started to talk about milk and everything that we could do with milk. And he started to talk about the products that you could make and all of the ways that we had to measure things related to those products. And I just got so excited about it, I couldn't get over myself. And so so that was a long time ago. That was back about 1982 when I had that first course in here. I followed up in my senior year with another dairy processing class that was taught also by Tony Ernstrom. And then I decided I needed to get into the dairy food processing industry or research or something. So I went to Dr. Ernstrom and I said, well, this is my situation. I'm almost done with a dairy cattle production degree. But that's not what I want to do. What I want to do is over here with you. And he said, well, that's easy. He said, just come over and do a master's degree with me, which I did. So I got master's degree in '87, and then I was going to go and work, start making some money, because I had a family at the time. And he said, no, wait. He said, I've got this project that you'd be great for. And it was funded by the American Jersey Cattle Club. And so he convinced me that I should stay on for a PhD, which was another experience. So I graduated in 1989 with my PhD. Tony Ernstrom in the interim had retired and gone to work as the Vice President of Research for the National Dairy Promotion and Research Board. Okay. So then ultimately I got my degree and ended up in Minnesota as a professor. And then after about 6 years, our family, we always thought we'd like to get back out west, and an opportunity came in southern Idaho at what was then Avonmore West, is now Glanbia. And so I was at Glanbia for 18 years working in dairy research. You know, we worked a lot on whey proteins and products derived from that. We worked a lot on the health aspects of the whey proteins at Glanbia. But during that time was when we were hiring a lot of people. When I started there, we only had 5. And when I decided to start into my current venture in 2016, that team of 5 had grown to a team of 50 people right in Twin Falls, Idaho, and another 30 out in the rest of the world. So I had 80 people under me in a research and development team. So that was significant growth, and we had to hire all those people during that 18-year period. And so we were always interested in students coming out of the university that knew something about milk and dairy products. But it became increasingly difficult as time was going on. So in 2014, Don McMahon and I had a conversation about, that we needed to do something or we wouldn't have anybody, because funding was drying up. The number of professors that did dairy research was kept decreasing, and the group of people that I worked with here at Utah State back when I was a student were effectively gone off, and then Don was about the only dairy professor here at the time. So, I sat down with the folks at Glanbia and said, look, we need to infuse some resources. Don and I talked together about how we could bring students in, get them in dairy-related research, and then prime them for the industry. And that was the beginning and the formation of the Build Dairy program.
The Western Dairy Center has been here functioning in the Western region for over 30 years. In fact, when I came back to Utah State University in 1987, it had just started. They just started the Dairy Center program, and it was Utah State, Oregon State, and Brigham Young University combined. And there was a lot of research going on in those days, and there was a three-way partnership between the universities putting money in for their faculty and their resources, from the National Dairy Board program, and also from the state and regionals and from industry. And over the years, the program changed, and the net result was about 5 years ago, there were very few projects being funded through the dairy centres, and we no longer had any linkages with BYU or Oregon State or anybody else. And we still had a lot of interest from companies in the area because the cheese industry was growing, particularly in Idaho. And so there was a big need for students, but not the resources to bring them through the program. And so that was 2014, actually, in a discussion with industry people, when it was recognized that if we wanted more people to come out of the program, more graduates who understood dairy foods, who had an interest in working in the industry, who could provide the next generation of innovators, then we needed to do something. And that was the impetus for saying, okay, what's needed in order for more students to come into the program and come out of the program, and also how can we organize it so that we have more people rather than just the few dairy professors left in the region who were training students, helping them in their learning and discovery, and building that passion for dairy foods. And so in conjunction with Glanbia Nutritionals, who are the first sponsor in the Build Dairy program and continue to be a major player in that initiative, was when we started off and actually were able to work with the university here in Logan, get additional money came in, and we started off, we had 5 students in the Build Dairy program. And now we have 50 plus students. And that's all grown as we've built these collaboration and linkages between the industry and the university, and not just the processing industry, but also through the Dairy West program, through the dairy farmers, all the way through to the processors, and looking at how do we get the people that we need to drive that industry further.
Danton is a young man from Eastern Oregon who was looking for a career in the dairy industry, and we really started meeting him already as an undergraduate student. But when he became a graduate student, Build helped us provide a much better education for him, and it helped us also with the Build meetings where students get together and they network and they meet employers or potential employers. And indeed, the reason why Danton now works here in Boise for Lactalis is due to an interview and meeting people at the last Build meeting he was at. So Build has had a tremendous impact on his career.
So I got interested in dairy while I was at Oregon State University as an undergraduate student. I took a dairy processing course with Dr. Goddick there, and I was just fascinated by how milk could be transformed into so many different things, cheese, yogurt, ice cream, all delicious and nutritious foods. And I was also fascinated by the science behind it. I've always been interested in science, so it kind of was perfect for me, meeting of two worlds, food and science. So that inspired me to continue in and start as a cheesemaker at Oregon State during my undergraduate career. So I spent 2 years there as a cheesemaker, and that led me to becoming interested in a graduate program in dairy science and dairy research. So I started looking for different opportunities with different graduate programs. And the Build program really stood out as unique because they really focus on having the students be from a certain region, the Pacific Northwest and the Western region, and they want the students to stay in that region. And for me, that was very important. I wanted to stay near home while I did my education and for my entire career. So it kind of was the perfect storm, finding the Build Dairy program.
It's very, very difficult to find somebody with the dairy knowledge and the understanding of how it applies into the food industry, and so it's critical for the success of our organization to have those with the education and the understanding of dairy.
The science piece of the Build Dairy program for me has been my master's project, which has been studying biofilm buildup and release over long pasteurization runtimes. I was always fascinated by biofilms. I'm a microbiologist, and I thought that was really cool. They would work together to almost be a multicellular organism. So having that in an applied science is really cool. And also it helps me to understand industry a little deeper, because I actually got to build my own pasteurizer on a lab scale, and I get to operate it for 18 hours at a time, which is kind of tough, but it's been a really cool experience for me. So, and doing my master's project has helped me to kind of hone in my research skills and just improve altogether as a scientist.
So my research is about the stress response of the Listeria monocytogenes, which is a food pathogen in the food industry. So we're trying to look at, because in the industry we usually use organic acid like acetic acid or lactic acid to kill the bacteria, to kill the pathogen. But I actually found that some of the Listeria can survive under those conditions. We're trying to figure out why they have become more virulent. They can survive under the organic acid conditions, which will be a huge challenge if we cannot kill the bacteria in the production.
My project with the Build Dairy program focuses on working on the isolation of phospholipids from highly concentrated low-cost products that we get either as byproducts or that are sold as animal feed. And so my project entails isolating these phospholipids, and then I'm seeing how these phospholipids affect other food systems. So I'm putting those into lipid systems, and I'm looking at the way that it affects crystallization, as well as I'm looking at other ways that these phospholipids could potentially be used to create something called oil gels.
So I think that as we go forward, we're going to be attracting more and more students. They'll recognize the value that the Build Dairy program and being involved in the Build Dairy program has for them. I mean, we've seen that already with students come in, no idea what they want to do, gain their knowledge in dairy technology, decide that's an area that they would like to work, and are now working out in the industry and being innovators for the industry, and which is the goal for it. Yes, obviously we want them to do great research, which they do, and we see that knowledge increasing and publications and presentations, which is the backbone of the university research system. But I think this system is going to grow and has the potential to not only help the food industry maintain that innovative edge here in the Northwest region, but for other people to take this as a model and say we could do the same sort of thing. And that becomes, I think, a major part of the program is recruiting, finding students who have the talent and the interest who can succeed in these programs.
With the early money, we got about, somewhere between 5 and 10 students started, which was good. But now we have more than 50 students in the program. And we have projects running here at Utah State, also at the University of Idaho. We have students down at Brigham Young University. We have students at Washington State University, at Oregon State University, and then we have even a couple of pieces of research that we didn't feel like we had the expertise in our region. So we've got some students out with Marianne Drake at NC State. We've got one student at Kansas State, and we've got one student at Penn State. So it's grown into something that's become quite an effort to train students in dairy and prime them to get ready to be employed in the dairy industry and be that future innovation that we really need to drive our industry forward. We've got a glut of milk right now. We need new markets, new products. We need these young people that can bring the ideas and the innovative principles into these companies and push them forward into those new markets so that we can sell our milk products out and continue the thriftiness of our industry and for our dairy farmer families that exist in our region here.